Have you ever stopped to think about what really makes you connect with some people? Or what causes that primal feeling of danger when you're being watched? It turns out there's a hidden world connecting your brain, your friendships, and even your fears, and it's all written in our brainwaves.
I mean, seriously, what if that instant click you feel with a new friend isn't random? And what if that chilling sense of dread you get from a certain person's stare has a real, deep biological explanation? What if it's all about how your brain is wired to see the world? Well, let's dive right in and find out.
To get to the bottom of this mystery, we first need to get our heads around a really unique way of thinking. It's a cognitive style that some researchers call prismatic, and they're actually drawing inspiration from geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci.
So what does it mean to have a prismatic mind? Well, think of a prism splitting light into a rainbow. A prismatic brain does something similar with ideas. It doesn't see things in just black and white. It has this incredible neural flexibility to look at a concept from all sorts of angles at the same time, seeing a whole spectrum of possibilities and connections that others might miss. Now, this pairs up with another cool concept, also inspired by Da Vinci, called pragmatic Sfumato. You know his famous painting style where the edges are all blurry and soft? That's Sfumato. In the brain, this is the ability to be comfortable with ambiguity, to think in shades of gray. It lets you make these amazing creative leaps and smart, adaptive decisions without getting bogged down by needing every single detail to be perfectly clear.
And look, this isn't just some artsy metaphor. This stuff is grounded in hard, Nobel Prize-winning science. Take a look at holistic mapping on this table. That refers to our brain's inner GPS, the discovery of how we navigate space, which actually won the Nobel Prize. So these ideas about how we think, they run deep. They're biologically real.
Okay, so how does this prismatic brain actually work, in our day-to-day lives? It all comes down to how it focuses on different objects. Now, an object can be anything, a piece of art, a story, or even a feeling. And depending on the object, different parts of the brain just light right up.
So, let's start with a really simple, neutral object, something scientists love to use in their research: a movie clip.
When you're watching a movie, it feels simple, right? But your brain is going wild. You've got this whole network firing up. Now, don't worry about memorizing the names here. That's not the point. The point is that all these different parts work together so you can follow the story, figure out what the characters are thinking, and keep your attention focused. Your brain is basically building this incredibly rich, multidimensional world from scratch.
All right, now let's switch gears. We're going from a neutral movie clip to something way more complex and emotionally loaded. Let's talk about a social cue, like that gut feeling that someone is envious of you or that you're suddenly in a competitive situation.
And boom! A totally different set of circuits lights up. You probably recognize the amygdala. That's your brain's alarm system for fear and emotion. It teams up with these other areas to figure out potential rewards, threats, and where you stand in the social pecking order. See how it works? The object changes from a film to a feeling, and the brain's entire response map just shifts in an instant.
So we've seen that different objects activate different parts of the brain. But this is where it gets really, really fascinating. What happens when two separate people look at the exact same thing and their brains light up in the exact same pattern?
Well, scientists actually have a name for this. It's called neural similarity. It's a real, measurable, biological sign that two minds are on the same wavelength. It's a signature of shared understanding, and it is the key to unlocking the whole mystery of human connection. And it turns out that instant click you feel with someone, it's not just a feeling. It is absolutely real. A groundbreaking study actually scanned people's brains while they watched movies and found they could predict with incredible accuracy who would end up becoming friends later. It's your brain literally recognizing another mind that sees the world the same way you do.
But there's a flip side to this. This powerful system that forges our connections has a dark side. That very same feeling of being seen by someone, of having your mind understood, well, it can be interpreted very differently. What happens when being watched doesn't feel like connection at all, but feels like a serious threat? Research shows that, on average, male and female brains react a bit differently when they're in spectator mode. As you can see here, male brain patterns often lean toward a more structured, analytical style of observation. In contrast, female patterns tend to fire up regions linked to empathy and figuring out what others are feeling, which supports more adaptive, relational thinking.
Now here's the crucial part. For certain males, especially those who have a history of trauma or maybe even specific genetic vulnerabilities, that analytical spectator mode can get cranked up to 11. It becomes hypervigilant, the brain's observation circuits get cross-wired with its threat detection system, and suddenly a neutral glance from someone else feels like a real, biologically grounded danger.
This leads us to the final and maybe the most provocative piece of this whole puzzle. Some researchers believe this difference isn't just about brain wiring. It might be rooted in our very DNA, and specifically in a gendered genetic sequence.
Here's a wild fact. For millions of years, the Y chromosome, the very thing that makes someone biologically male, has been shrinking. It's been steadily losing its genetic information over vast stretches of evolutionary time. And that has some pretty startling implications.
So, let's just walk through the logic here, because this is where it all comes together. 1. If these unique male cognitive styles, like the prismatic brain, are influenced by genes on the Y chromosome, 2. We know that chromosome is getting smaller and losing genetic data over time. 3. The logical conclusion is, the very genetic code linked to this unique way of thinking is, in a very real biological sense, endangered.
So, the next time you feel that incredible instant spark with a new friend, or that chilling, unexplainable sense of being watched, just remember what's happening under the surface. You're not just having a random feeling. You are experiencing a deep biological echo, a story that's written not just in your mind, but in your very genes. And that's a pretty profound reminder of the hidden forces that shape who we are and how we see each other.